My name is Paige, and this happened to me in Columbus, Ohio during the Christmas season of 2020. I've told this story a few times, and it still doesn't sound real when I say it out loud. When I matched with Ethan and he suggested grabbing a drink, I said yes. Not because I thought it would turn into anything meaningful, but because I wanted one normal night. Something that didn't feel like the world was about to break again. He was charming right away. Warm. The kind of guy who laughed easily and talked about Christmas like it was still a real season. Not just decorations people forgot to take down. We met at a bar trying hard with the holiday vibe. String lights, fake garlands, a bartender in a Santa hat that kept slipping over his eyes. 2 drinks in, Ethan suggested we head to his place. I made mulled wine, he said. Bars feel weird lately anyway. That made sense. Everything felt weird. His apartment was 10 minutes away. 2nd floor. Brick building. Inside, it was cozy in a way that felt intentional. Tree in the corner, cinnamon candles, one of those fireplace videos playing on the TV with soft jazz underneath. You weren't kidding, I said, nodding at the tree. He smiled. I commit. He poured the wine and handed me a mug like we'd known each other longer than a few hours. We sat on the couch, half watching a cheesy Christmas movie. The conversation flowed easily. Bad jobs, family stuff, dumb holiday traditions. Normal. When I checked my phone, it was getting late. Not late, just late enough that leaving wouldn't be rude. I should probably head out, I said lightly. Early morning. He made a face. Already? Come on, one more drink. It sounded playful, so I agreed. He refilled my mug before I finished it. But then it happened again. And again. Every time I shifted like I was about to stand, he popped up with something. More wine, a story, a snack. Cookies appeared like they'd been waiting. It took me a while to realize it wasn't coincidence. He was interrupting the decision. The other thing I noticed was his focus. He wasn't really watching the movie. He was watching me. When I checked my phone, when I looked toward the door, like he was tracking choices, I told myself I was reading too much into it. When I stood up again and said I was serious about leaving, he beat me to the hallway. Relax, he laughed. You're acting like I'm kidnapping you. He reached the door and clicked the lock. There, he said. Now you can't leave. Kidding. He laughed, but he didn't look at the door when he locked it. He looked at my face. I laughed too, because that's what you do when something feels off, but you don't want to escalate it. Okay, I said. That's funny. His smile stayed, but it felt tighter now. You're so tense, he said. Then the question started shifting. Where do you park? Do you live alone? Anyone who'd notice if you didn't answer your phone? Each question was casual by itself. Together, they felt like intake forms. I should go, I said again, more firmly. He stepped into the hallway, not blocking it outright, just positioning himself so there wasn't a clean path past him. He kept smiling, kept talking, kept drifting just enough to stay between me and the door. I pulled my phone out. I'm calling my roommate. He didn't even try to hide watching the screen. You live alone, he said. Yeah, sorry. I meant my friend. He stared at me. Then calmly, why would you lie to me? The way he said it wasn't angry. It was curious, like he was testing a theory. I looked at the lock again. He followed my eyes. I don't like being misled, he said. I'm leaving, I said. He stepped closer, enough that if I reached for the lock, my arm would brush his. Sit, he said. You're making this weird. I'm done, I said, and turned toward the bathroom like I was grabbing my jacket. I locked the bathroom door as soon as it closed. My hands felt clumsy now. The window above the counter was small but opened. Outside was a flat entryway roof dusted with frost. I didn't think, I just climbed. From the other side of the door, he knocked once. Don't do anything stupid, he said, still calm. I slid out the window, dropped onto the roof, then down to the ground. The landing jolted my ankle, but I kept moving. Behind me, Christmas music still played. Soft, cozy, like nothing was wrong. I ran toward my car. Halfway there, I heard the window open. Hey, he called. I didn't look back until I was inside the car with the doors locked. My hands shook on the keys. He stepped onto the walkway. No coat, just socks on cold concrete. He stood under the parking lot light and looked straight at me. I drove off. A block away, my phone buzzed. You didn't say goodbye. I blocked the number and pulled over, trying to breathe normally. The next day, the thing I couldn't stop thinking about was the door. Because when he joked and locked it, that was the deadbolt. But when I reached for it later, there was another latch already slid into place. The higher one you don't notice until you're right there. Meaning at some point while we were laughing and drinking wine, he'd locked me in twice. Now, Christmas music doesn't sound cozy anymore. It just sounds like cover noise. My name is Amber, and this happened to me in Lakeland, Florida in December of 2019. I'm a stay-at-home mom, which means my brain is always juggling lists, snacks, shoes, sunscreen, and keeping my kid within arm's reach. Back then, my youngest, Mason, was 6. Old enough to notice things, young enough to still believe in magic if it showed up wearing the right costume. That night, I was trying to give him one of those sweet memories. Nothing big, just a small outdoor holiday event near a shopping center. String lights, fake snow, music playing too loud, parents pretending they weren't exhausted. The parking lot was chaos. Cars circling, carts clanging, kids pulling at sleeves. I had 2 shopping bags in one hand, Mason's hand in the other, and my phone tucked under my arm. I remember thinking, okay, this is worth it. This is what December is supposed to feel like. We'd already seen the real Santa inside the event area. Velvet rope, helper with a clipboard, backdrop that said merry and bright. Mason told him he wanted Legos. We took the picture. Done. All I wanted next was to get to the car without losing a mitten or my patience. That's when I saw Santa again. At first, it didn't register as strange. You see Santa costumes everywhere in December. But this one wasn't near the crowd. He was standing closer to the edge of the lot, where the lights thinned out and the music faded. He stepped out from between 2 parked cars and waved. "Hey there," he called. Friendly. "Hey buddy, come here for a second." Mason slowed immediately, confused. Santa pointed toward a van parked a few spaces away. Dark-colored, older, tinted windows. No decorations. No signage. "I've got extra presents," Santa said. "The really good ones. Can't bring them out here with everyone around. Come on, I'll show you." I tightened my grip on Mason's hand. "No thanks," I said automatically. "We're good." Santa's eyes stayed on Mason. Then he said his name. Mason. My chest went hot. Mason didn't respond. He leaned closer to my leg. Santa smiled wider. "Don't be shy. Big surprise." "Where do you know his name from?" I asked. He blinked. "Santa knows everybody's name." Mason looked up at me and whispered, "Mom, I've seen him before." My stomach dropped into this weighty, awful feeling that fear doesn't explain. "Seen who?" I asked quietly. "Him," Mason said. "Around." Santa's smile didn't fade. "Around where?" I asked. Mason looked toward the van, by the street, near our neighborhood. I stood up straighter. Santa took a step forward. "Hey now, let's not make this awkward. I'm just trying to give the kid a present." People were still moving around us. Nobody was watching yet. I shifted so I was fully between Santa and my son. "We're leaving." Santa's voice sharpened. "Ma'am, I'm not doing anything wrong." "Back up," I said. He leaned slightly to the side, trying to get a clear view of Mason. Then he reached out, extending his hand toward my child's arm. "That was it. Don't touch my child." Heads turned. I pulled my phone out and hit record, pointing it straight at his face. "I'm recording. Step away." For a second, he froze. Then the Santa act vanished completely. No apology, no laughter, no character, just irritation. "You don't have to do all that," he said. "Yes," I said, "I do." Someone nearby started walking toward us. Another woman slowed her cart, watching. Santa looked at the van. Then he turned and walked fast. Too fast to look normal, straight toward it. The side door slid open. He got in. The van pulled away smoothly, like the driver had been waiting. I stood there shaking, my phone still raised. Mason pressed his face into my side. "That's him," he whispered. "That's the guy." Police arrived later. They asked questions, took notes, checked cameras that didn't catch the plate clearly. Mason told them he'd seen the man before, near our mailbox once when he was riding his bike. That night, I sat on the couch with the blinds closed, replaying the video frame by frame, trying to catch something useful. For weeks after, every van slowed my breathing. Every time Mason went outside, I watched. Here's the part that still sticks with me. He wasn't being Santa. He was wearing Santa. And my kid didn't recognize him as Santa at all. Mason recognized him as the thing he wore, which means when he walked toward us in that parking lot, he wasn't guessing. He thought he'd found the right moment. He thought I'd be distracted. He was wrong. I was 29 and working as a retail manager, which meant December didn't really feel like a month. It felt like a test of endurance. Long shifts, endless lines, and Christmas music on repeat until it stopped sounding festive and started sounding mechanical. I lived alone in a modest apartment building on the southeast side of town. 2 stories, thin walls, neighbors who kept to themselves. It wasn't special, but it was quiet. And after work, quiet was everything. Santa was everywhere that month. In the store, on posters, on sweaters. We had a full-size Santa cut out by the registers that scared customers if you rounded the corner too fast. By the time I got home each night, Santa didn't mean joy anymore. He meant work. That's probably why it took me a moment to realize something was wrong the first night I saw him. It was close to midnight. I'd just closed the store, driven home on autopilot, and parked under the flickering lot light like always. When I looked up at the building, I noticed someone standing near the entrance. At first, my brain tried to normalize it. Red coat, white trim, hat, boots, beard. Santa. He wasn't ringing a bell. He wasn't pacing. He wasn't talking on the phone. He was just standing there, slightly off to the side, facing the building like he was waiting for someone to come out. There was no mall nearby. No event. No reason for a Santa to be outside an apartment building after midnight. I sat in my car for a few minutes, watching him. When he didn't move, I finally got out and walked toward the door, pretending I hadn't noticed anything strange. As I passed, he turned his head just enough to acknowledge me. That was it. I went inside, locked my door, and laughed it off. People do weird stuff in December. I told myself not to turn nothing into something. The next night, I closed again. Same routine, same exhaustion, and Santa was there again. Same spot, same stillness, same timing. That's when the humor drained out of it. I stayed in my car watching. He wasn't acting drunk. He wasn't fidgeting. He stood like someone who knew exactly where they were supposed to be. I called my friend Lauren, half joking, half not. "There's a Santa outside my building," I whispered. She told me to call the police. I told her I didn't even know how to explain it. That night, I waited until he turned slightly away before going inside. I locked everything. Nothing happened. But after that, I started paying attention. Santa didn't show up every night. He only showed up on nights I closed. Nights Griffin. Nights I worked alone until midnight. If I got off early, there was no Santa. If my assistant manager closed instead of me, no Santa. It stopped feeling random. I stopped posting my schedule. I started parking in different spots. I caught myself checking reflections in windows and mirrors like it was second nature. Then one night, he wasn't where he was supposed to be. I pulled into the lot and scanned the entrance. Nothing. I felt ridiculous for the relief that washed over me, until I looked to the side of the building. He was there, closer, near the corner where my unit was, pressed into the shadow, and his head was tilted up. He was looking at my window. I knew it because I had a cheap snowflake light suctioned to the glass from inside, glowing faint blue, a dumb decoration I hadn't bothered to take down yet. He was staring directly at it. I stayed in my car, barely breathing. I called 911 with my phone still in my lap, like hiding it mattered. "There's a man outside my apartment," I said quietly. "He's dressed like Santa. He's looking at my window." The dispatcher told me to stay in my locked vehicle. While she was talking, Santa lowered his head and turned toward the parking lot. Toward me. He lifted his gloved hand, like to acknowledge that he knew where I was. Then he walked along the side of the building and disappeared behind it. The police arrived 10 minutes later. They searched the lot, the stairwells, the dumpsters. Nothing. Before leaving, one officer shined his flashlight into the bushes near the side of the building. He crouched and picked something up, a single strand of white synthetic hair. Damp, thin, fake beard hair, found exactly where Santa had been standing. That night, I wedged a chair under the door handle even though I hated myself for needing to. I slept with the lights off so my window wouldn't glow. For weeks after, I kept asking myself if I'd overreacted. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe it was someone bored. Maybe it was nothing. But here's the thing I can't shake. He wasn't wandering around town dressed as Santa. He wasn't surprising strangers. He was waiting where I lived, like it was his shift. And every December, since then, when I hear Christmas music playing softly somewhere it shouldn't be, I don't think cozy anymore. I think about how easy it is to hide intent behind something cheerful. Because sometimes that's the whole point of the costume. My name is Maddie. I'm from South Bend, Indiana, and this happened to me a few nights before Christmas in December of 2022. I was 22 at the time, finishing my last year of college. I wasn't fearless, but I wasn't reckless either. I did the normal safety stuff without thinking about it. Keys threaded between my fingers, phone charged, routes planned in my head. Midnight Mass was the one thing I still did every year without overthinking. Not because I was deeply religious, but because it felt good. Candlelight, quiet music, people being gentle with each other for an hour. It felt like a pause button on everything messy. That night, the church was full in that calm, respectful way. Coats piled on pews, parents whispering to tired kids. The air smelled like wax and old wood. I slipped into a pew near the middle, close enough to feel anonymous. That's when I noticed him. He was sitting 3 pews behind me, alone. Plenty of people come alone, but the way I noticed him stuck with me longer than it should have. Everyone else moved with the flow of the service, standing, kneeling, sitting, passing the candle flame. He was always just slightly off, standing a beat late, sitting after everyone else had already settled. And when I looked back once, he was already looking forward, past the pews, toward me, not staring aggressively, just watching, like he was making sure I stayed where he expected me to be. I looked away and told myself to stop reading into things. It was a crowded church. People look around. That's normal. The service went on. Candlelight spread across the room, soft and warm. I sang quietly, tried to focus, tried to let the year dissolve for a minute. But every time the room shifted, my attention checked behind me without permission. When the final song ended, people started filing out slowly. I waited. I always do. I like leaving once the crowd thins. When I finally stood and stepped into the aisle, I saw him again. He was already on his feet, already angled toward the exit. Outside, the cold snapped me fully awake. The doors opened and closed behind people, releasing waves of warm light and muffled music. The parking lot buzzed with quiet conversations and Merry Christmas. Safe. That's what it felt like. I zipped my coat and started walking toward the side street where I'd parked. I texted my friend Jenna something stupid, just a photo of candle wax on my sleeve and a joke about smelling like a candle store. Halfway across the lot, I looked back. He was there, not right behind me, across the lot near a row of cars, standing still like he'd paused mid-step. Except he wasn't looking at anything around him. He was looking at me. I slowed, pretending to check my phone. He started walking again. So did I. I told myself it was coincidence. Same service, same parking area. That happens. I reached the sidewalk and turned left toward my car. A few steps later, I looked back. He turned left too. My thoughts got loud after that. Busy. Searching for reasons this wasn't real. Maybe he lived nearby. Maybe his car was parked on the same street. Maybe I was projecting. The street was mostly empty. Quiet houses, porch lights, no traffic. I passed the first corner and decided to test it. Instead of turning toward my car, I kept going straight another half block. My car was back the other way, but I didn't want to lead him directly to it. I kept my pace casual. At the next corner, I turned right. I waited 3 seconds and looked back. He turned right too. That was the moment denial stopped working. People don't accidentally mirror 4 turns in a row. I pulled out my phone and called Jenna. Not because she could help, but because I needed noise. Proof of connection. She answered groggily. Maddie? I made my voice bright on purpose. Loud. Yeah. I'm literally 2 minutes away, I said clearly. I'm walking up now. I filled the air with nonsense. Talked about the service, the music, anything. I looked back again. He was closer. I scanned the street and spotted a house ahead with a bright porch light, yellow glow, bench by the door. It looked occupied. I hung up. Then I walked faster. His footsteps changed too, shorter, quicker. I took the porch steps 2 at a time and knocked hard. Once, twice. Then again with my palm. Behind me, his steps stopped at the bottom of the stairs. I didn't turn fully, but I could feel him there. I knocked again and called out like I belonged. The porch light flickered, an inside light snapped on. A curtain shifted, and just like that, he backed away. He stepped backward into the dark like the light had erased him. The door opened. A man's voice, cautious. Yeah? I'm sorry, I said, words tumbling. There was someone following me. Can I just stand here? He took one look at my face and stepped aside. Come in. I crossed the threshold and looked back out. The street was empty, just quiet and cold and my breath fogging. The man asked if I wanted the police called. I said yes. When they arrived, they asked questions I couldn't answer properly. Description, direction, how fast he moved, where he went. There was nothing to point at. No car, no tracks, no proof. One officer drove me to my car and waited until I locked the doors and pulled away. The next day, I tried to tell myself I overreacted. But my body didn't believe that, because in church, he wasn't praying. He was watching. And outside, he didn't wander. He followed. And when a door opened and a light came on, he didn't explain or hesitate. He disappeared. I still go to church sometimes, but I don't go to midnight mass anymore. Not because I lost faith, because Christmas night used to feel like the safest walk home of the year. Now it feels like the kind of night where someone can choose you in candlelight and follow you while everyone else sings. This was the Christmas season of 2023. I was working a seasonal job at the mall. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid well enough, and during the holidays, predictable work felt comforting. Fold clothes, smile at stressed shoppers, listen to the same Christmas playlist until it stopped sounding cheerful. That night was a closing shift. The kind where your feet ache in unfamiliar ways, and you count down the minutes until you can take off your name tag and stop pretending you care whether someone needs gift receipts. Our store was near Center Court, not far from the Santa photo setup. Fake fireplace, velvet ropes, oversized chair, the usual. The guy who played Santa usually changed out of the costume fast. He'd wave, crack a joke, and disappear into the employee hallway like he was embarrassed to still be wearing it. By the time we locked up, the mall was mostly empty. Last families shuffled out, janitors rolled carts that squeaked with every turn, metal gates rattled down in the distance. Christmas music still played overhead, bright and cheerful, like it hadn't realized everyone had gone home. I was finishing paperwork in the back when my coworker Tasha leaned in and said, "Santa's still out there." I didn't look up. Like, decoration Santa? No, she said. I smiled at first. Of course he was still there. Maybe waiting for his ride. Maybe taking a breather. Totally normal explanations. But Tasha didn't move farther into the room. She stayed by the door. He's just sitting, she added. That made me pause. We clocked out and stepped into the corridor together. The mall felt different after closing. Too quiet, too wide. And there he was. Santa, full costume, sitting upright in the chair, hands resting on his thighs. The lights around the photo area were off. Only the overhead mall lights remained, casting long shadows. The beard was still on. The hat, everything. It felt wrong outside the context of kids and cameras. Like seeing a mascot alone at night, it made your brain stall. We slowed down without saying anything. Hey, Rick? Tasha called softly. No response. I tried to laugh it off. Maybe he fell asleep. But when I looked closer, I saw his eyes were open. And they followed us. We picked up our pace and headed toward the employee hallway. I told Tasha we were tired, that exhaustion makes things feel off, that this was nothing. Outside, the cold air hit hard. Bakersfield winters aren't brutal, but after a long shift indoors, it felt way colder. The employee parking lot had wide gaps between lights, bright circles surrounded by darkness, the kind of place where footsteps sound louder than they should. Halfway to our cars, I looked back. Santa was in the lot, positioned off to the side near a cart return like he'd chosen the spot on purpose. Too fast. Too quiet. Tasha stopped abruptly. Tell me you see that. I nodded. My throat felt tight, like my body was already preparing for something worse. Santa lifted one hand and gave a small wave. Just acknowledgement. My car's that way, I said, pointing, even though I already knew I wasn't going toward it. Nope, I said louder. We're going back inside. Tasha didn't argue. She turned immediately. We walked fast, resisting the urge to run. I kept my eyes forward, but I could feel the space behind us. The darkness felt deeper than it should have. Inside the mall again, it was brighter, but emptier. Bright doesn't always mean safe. We went straight to the security desk. It was usually staffed. That night, it wasn't. The chair was pushed back. The monitors were dark. The main monitor displayed a message, "System reboot in progress." Tasha stared at it like it was mocking us. I called my brother. He answered immediately. "Stay inside," he said. "Under lights, don't go back out." We stood there, backs to the counter, watching the corridor like prey waiting for movement. Minutes passed. Then more. Finally, a janitor came down the hallway pushing a cart. He stopped when he saw us. "You girls okay?" he asked. Something in his tone told me he believed us before we even explained. When I told him what happened, he didn't joke. He didn't question it. He just offered to walk us to our cars. We waited until he was ready and moved together as a group. Outside, the lot looked the same. Santa was gone. No red suit, no wave, nothing. I locked my car doors immediately and sat there for a moment, hands resting on the steering wheel like they belonged to someone else. The next day, I told my manager. He sighed like he didn't want the problem. Probably one of the performers messing around. "It wasn't," I said, and I meant it. He shrugged. Security didn't report anything. I told him security wasn't even there. I told him the cameras were down. "Systems reboot sometimes," he said, like that explained it. I quit 2 days later. The worst part wasn't seeing Santa in the parking lot. It was realizing the mall could close, the crowds could leave, the lights could stay on, and someone could still plan around all of it. If these stories made you rethink who you trust during the holidays, smash that like button, hit subscribe so you never miss the next scare, and tell us which moment crossed the line for you. And if you think winter just means quiet nights and pretty snow, you haven't watched this channel enough. Click now to watch 4 disturbing winter horror stories. Because cold doesn't just freeze roads, it freezes options. Thanks for watching. Stay alert, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next nightmare.